welcome to BW Business World. My name is Tarannum Manjul and I'm an assistant editor with BW Business World. And yesterday, in fact, when the union budget was announced by the finance minister, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, we saw a lot of different experts from various sectors dissecting and talking and discussing about the budget with my experienced colleagues from BW Business World. They were from the field of agriculture, from the CFOs, and from energy sector and from the technology sector. And continuing with that, today, in fact, we are starting off with our panel discussions for the day with my colleague Kishan Singh, who's from BW Retail World, and we'll be discussing about the retail sector, that how from policy to consumption the retail budget's scorecard has been. With me, in fact, I would like to welcome all the panelists who have come today with us, with those who have joined us for the panel discussion. And I have with me Mr. Mayank Shah, who is the Vice President for Parle Products. Welcome, sir.
Pleasure to be on the show.
Thank you. And I have with me Mr. Ankit Virmani from Esskay Beauty. Welcome, Mr. Virmani. He's the director for
My
Esskay
pleasure.
Beauty.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. And also I have with me Mr. Naveen Malpani, partner, consumer and retail industry leader, Grant Thornton, Bharat. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure to be on the show.
Yeah. And just beginning, in fact, with this, I would first like to take a common question with all the panelists here. My first question would be to, in fact, starting off with Mr. Shah, in fact. Sir, what is your initial take on the budget, especially from the retail and the consumer sector lens? And also, which single announcement do you think will most directly influence consumer demand in the next 6 to 12 months?
See, I have to sum up. If I have to sum up this budget, I think there are no big announcement or big reforms. It's very progressive and largely focused on sustaining growth. We are growing as an economy and we are doing well. And I think the attempt is to ensure that we remain resilient and we continue growing at this pace. So we have not really seen very big announcements or big reforms which otherwise would highlight which are the highlights of typically a very populist budget. What we've seen is technical things which would ensure that we consolidate and we sustain our growth. To my mind, I think the most important thing that the government has done is to ensure that I would put it in two parts. One is to ensure that there is enough job creation that happens, and there are multiple measures that government has taken, right from creating a MSME growth fund and finding champions out there to electronic component manufacturing scheme where they are investing 40,000 crore, or even probably safe harbor regime for GCCs. I think all of these things are going to generate employment, and it's going to help put more money in the hands of consumers, which is going to result into better demand for FMCG and food products. Even the PLI, I think, is going to go a long way. Focus on certain sectors like textiles, chemical parks, biopharma, rare earth, and semiconductor. This thing is going to augur very well in terms of employment generation. So this was one part. This was to ensure demand. Now, while you ensure that there is good demand that's coming in because of higher employment generation, what government has also done is that they also focused and they also taken initiatives to ensure that you're doing or you are pushing growth in agri or farm sector, farm and agri related sectors by ensuring that the raw material prices, which are key to ensuring price stability in FMCG, they remain under control. So important and costly items like cashews or coconut, cocoa, some of them really imported today, almonds and walnuts. Government has initiated measures to ensure that we improve our yields there, we improve our production there, and special reforms have been announced to ensure that we improve there. So the agri and allied sector reforms will ensure that we have stability in input prices, and we are able to, we as manufacturers are able to, ensure stable prices, which would further accelerate the demand. So net, I think, a budget that's not really very big on announcements or reforms, but definitely, technically sound to ensure that we sustain our growth rate and things that we are doing right.
Definitely, Mr. Shah. And in fact, I will just take a minute to welcome one more panelist first, Sanket S, who's the co-founder of Scandalous Foods. Welcome, Sanket.
Hi, Tarannum. Hi, everyone.
Yeah. So, Sanket, in fact, this was a common question that was to all the panelists, and I would just ask the same to you, in fact. And Mr. Shah had just said his insights. So, what do you think? What is your initial take on the budget, especially from the retail and the consumer sector lens? And which single announcement do you think is most directly to influence the consumer demand in the next 1 year?
So, so Tarannum, I mean, as a startup and as an MSME, I think the budget has done a lot of good things for us, especially on the supply side. I think the creation of the I mean, increasing the credit guarantee scheme from 10 crores to 20 crores, helping with that, guaranteeing the invoice discounting. Those kind of things have really, those kind of things are really going to help startups like us. On the demand side, I think we'll have to wait and watch and see how the demand increases from the consumer point of view, because I don't think there's been any changes in the income tax, so I don't think there has been more money put in the hands of the consumers. But of course, I mean, there is a lot done on the infrastructure push and all of that, so which will eventually, obviously, generate more employment and generate more income for people. But I think that's a long shot. I don't see an immediate money in the hands of consumers. So, but I hope that we see some action on the demand side as well, because they've done a good job in creating the supply side. So, if that gets backed by the demand side, I think we will see a lot of growth in the revenue for companies.
Definitely, Sanket, and the growth, of course, is the key point everywhere. So, in fact, coming with the same question to Mr. Ankit Virmani. So, Mr. Virmani, how do you think? Like, what is your opinion on the budget?
Well, coming from the background of the beauty and wellness industry, where we've been there for the last 23 years, and primarily focusing on that salon channel, the biggest win that we see is the recognition of the orange economy, where our skilled, hairdressers, beauticians, and stylists will now be getting a lot of focus as far as job creation and the skilling bit that's happening. So that'll be a big win for us, because there is still, despite having a very large population, the skilled manpower in our sector is still the biggest headache. When we talk to all the salon owners, and when we talk to our channel, they are always the crunch of good talent. So by recognizing, on the skilling aspect, to train 1.5 lakh caregivers and wellness professionals, this will be a big win from the supply angle for the talented workforce. On the other side, since majority of the salons are, MSME, the compliance bit, the Jan Vishwas bill that will decriminalize a lot of mere offences and, help diminish the inspector raj. I think that will also help uh, getting the compliance things better. A lot of MSME salons would then try to become mainstream, which currently, a lot of them are very scared of compliances. And, when any inspector comes, a lot of times there are a lot of cases when, they try to get rid of things. But coming to the majority part, the consumption part, I think this budget, since there are not major tax reforms, except that the compliance of filing returns, etc., will be much easier. The stability itself might increase the demand, because with this stability, at least the consumer knows that their their spending capacity is still the same. It's not shrunk, if not grown. And that stability, because as a company, as Mr. Shah also said, as a country, we are growing at about 8%. So given at this stature, even the stability is a good enough stimulus for us, all of us, to grow. And combined with the compliance relief, the scaling benefit, I think it will it might not lead to a momentous increase, but yeah, definitely it'll give the much needed, it'll maintain the much needed acceleration that the economy needs right now. That's my take.
Definitely, Mr. Virmani. And in fact, coming with the same question to Mr. Malpani, since you have been looking at the budget and also the sector with a analyst point of view, what is your opinion on this?
So thanks, Ranu. So I think the way my panelists said, the biggest takeaway for me from the union budget is the government's clear agenda of moving from, short-term consumption stimulus towards strengthening the core fundamentals that can sustain growth over a period of time, So this time the finance minister was very clear. Instead of giving tax giveaways or demand swaps, the budget was actually focused on income stability, domestic manufacturing depth and supply chain resilience. Now, if I look at it broadly, evident from three broad areas, if I look at from a capex perspective or public manufacturing linked incentives perspective, the government has actually made announcement towards developing certain specific regions with a 5,000 crore outlay or PLI schemes for electronic goods. So the whole thought is that, how do I improve the production process within the country rather than pure consumption? The another key factor, if I look at it from a budget perspective, is the whole target on MSMEs. There is a specified 10,000 crore fund that has been created, and expanded use of platforms like Trades, which has already facilitated nearly 7 lakh crores worth of transaction. The whole thought the government had was very clear, that stabilize employment and cash flows for the MSME. If I look at it from a sector perspective, there are about approximately 6.5 crore MSMEs across the country, and the consumer and retail sector has a very big share of MSMEs participating in that factor. So I think that's really beneficial from a supply chain perspective. And I think very specific incentives across electronics, textiles, agri-linked incentives. I think the strategy is very clear to build competitiveness, rather than protecting the demand artificially. So if I look at it on an overall macro level, sustaining 7% growth to 8% growth, without igniting the inflation part of it or widening any fiscal stress. I think that was the core objective of the government. The government's focus is very clear. Uh, you know, Make India more durable, more distributed across regions, and less vulnerable to the global supply chains. So if I look at it from an overall perspective, I think the focus is on growth rather than short-term demand consumption kind of a stuff. The message is very clear. Now we are going to create an infrastructure from a long-term growth perspective.
Thank you, sir. And coming back to you, Mr. Shah, first of all, thank you for being here. From the perspective of a brand with deep mass market exposure, are you seeing the signs that income support and policy measures will now really revive the volume growth, especially in the urban areas, or are consumers still trading down?
I think not as a part of the budget, but earlier government has already taken measures. So if you look at the last budget, government had introduced 12 lakh plus tax-free income provision with 75,000 as standard deduction. It goes to almost about 12.75 lakhs, which is tax-free. And the new tax regime, really helps put more disposable income in the hands of consumers. So that's already done. Add to it, I think, capital gains adjustment that government did at 12.5% for long term. I think these are the measures those are going to go a long way in terms of putting more money in the hands of consumer, more disposable money. And we've started seeing results of it. It's only further going to go up by uh, improving or by ensuring that there are outlays for agri and allied sectors. What government is doing is they are ensuring stability in prices, and with higher disposable income and stable prices, I think we'll see a good increase in demand coming in. We already started seeing that. That's what I started with, that if we really look at really big bang reforms and stuff like that, that's something that's missing. It's far more technical in nature, this particular budget. The idea is to ensure that we continue growing at the pace at which we are. In fact, increase it a little bit. So from about 6.8, 6.9% to 7% is what government is talking about in terms of GDP growth in the coming year, which I think is really decent. And measures which have been taken are to ensure that we grow at that rate. And all the initiatives which are being taken in budget are to ensure that we are resilient about there's resilience, and we ensure that we grow at that rate in the coming year.
Definitely, Mr. Shah. And in fact, coming over now to Mr. Ankit Virmani. So, Mr. Virmani, do you think that the budget, since you have been in the like in the beauty sector for more than 2 decades now, and do you think that the budget signals you more to be more confident about premiumization, or will value-conscious buying still dominate amongst the consumers?
Premiumization, although there is no major incentive or tax cut, as we all know in this budget, I think, in my opinion, for the premiumization bit, the stability of the incomes might be the only aspect, that will continue to drive that. And I feel that the orange economy bit, the Gen Zs, that, a lot of that creative field that's getting recognized, they, the pattern in which they spend is very different to, how traditionally we think at our age. Uh, so they focus a lot on spending on their looks. They focus a lot on spending on, their wellness over saving money for, let's say, buying a house 10 years later. So, that mindset sometimes might give, they might, so the look, the being conscious for their looks is a very important aspect for them. And we are seeing increased consumption for premium products. That's been continuing trend for the last few years. And so, yeah, so that's going to maintain. That's to answer the first bit of your question. Coming to the second bit, talking about the rural demand. Uh, yes, the value conscious, there are a lot of incentives and swaps that the government has given. And, this particular initiative of She Marts, where the rural women will be empowered to start with some ventures. That's going to be an added employment where, of course, the low ticket products and the value products would, services and products would sell a lot there. So premiumization, I believe, would remain stable or continue to grow at the pace that it is going. There's nothing much that's happening this year that will drive demand apart from the lifestyle bit. But yes, the value bit, the rural consumption bit, that should definitely get pegged up depending on how soon these schemes get implemented and how soon we see the on ground reality getting changed. So that's my bet on it.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Sanket, now that we have discussed the point around demand, in your opinion, did the budget help address the working capital and the credit access challenges for emerging food brands in your sector?
Absolutely. I think they've done a wonderful job there. So, the fact that they've increased the limit from 10 crores to 20 crores, that obviously, helps companies like us to raise debt rather than equity. And, so equity is precious. So that really helps. And plus, by, giving guarantee on invoices, they've just made invoice discounting easier for, younger companies like us, because even though invoice discounting has been an option for donkey's years, it's not as easy for startups to avail those facilities, which I believe will now become an option. Plus, I think that I mean, if I've read it right, the securitization of these invoices is, I think, is brilliant, right? I mean, even these NBFCs can sell those invoices further to larger banks, which gives them more money in their hands to lend further to companies like us. So I think, yeah, of course, on the supply side, I think they've solved that problem. And plus, for manufacturing companies like us, that SME fund will obviously help us raise equity money also from the government to set up a larger manufacturing facility as well. So I think, yeah, they've done a great job there.
So sorry. In fact, I would just take this question now to Mr. Malpani. Mr. Malpani, when you look at the budget with the policy point of view, and when you look at the budget in a broader perspective, from a structural standpoint, do you think that this budget has done enough to translate manufacturing and policy reforms into actual consumption growth, or the transmission is still a very weak link?
So, Tarannum, let me put it this way, the link between manufacturing reforms and consumption will evolve over a period of time. The budget is actually aligned from a long-term trajectory perspective. Where the budget is actually helping is by improving the conditions that enable transmission. For example, the custom rationalizations in electronics or the focus on local, more deeper localization, actually helps you to reduce the cost volatility and improve the capacity utilization as well. And the government is very clear in terms of their Make in India initiative. So they are taking steps in the right direction, from a manufacturing perspective. If you look at it, the other surrounding infrastructure that the government is trying to create, just for example, the logistic push, there is an outlay of nearly 12.2 lakh crores on the overall logistics development within the country. Now, if I look at it from a sector perspective, the average logistic cost for the sector, rotates between 10 to 20%. Logistic cost as a part of our GDP is about 13 to 14%. But with a better connectivity, roadways, railways, as well as on the waterways, it can actually help you to bring down the logistics cost to a great extent. And in fact, that actually helps you to build up the bottom line from the consumer companies as well. And you look at the other part of it, there are certain perishable goods, there are certain uh, goods which are available in the hinterland. They can be actually brought to the cities. So this way, actually, what will happen is we'll actually start pushing consumption in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, where currently, if I see from a demand perspective, that's where the goal lies. There is more demand in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, and all this incentives will actually help you to push the demand in the tier 2, tier 3 cities. But I think I would formally acknowledge that it's going to be a manufacturing-led consumption, and a growth may not be immediate. Job creation from new manufacturing capacity will take some time. Wage growth will take some time, and there would be a gap, from a discretionary spend perspective. So this is why what I see is the impact on consumption may not be immediate, but definitely the whole infrastructure that is getting created will definitely help from a growth perspective. So I think if I look at it from an overall perspective, I think it will have a steady impact over a period of time. I'm not expecting any demand surge immediately because of the budget announcement. But I think over a period of time, we will definitely see a surge and a strengthened FMCG sector as well because of the infrastructure and the growth initiatives that are getting created from the country itself.
Just in fact, just before leaving, in fact, there's one more point because the discussion was very interesting when we are talking about retail. So just let me just take one more question from the panelists since we do have time. And with that, then Kishan, you can uh, see me off, in fact, and see all the other panelists also off. So
Absolutely.
in fact, yeah, uh, this is a common question to all my panelists, in fact, now. And in fact, starting with Mr. Shah. Mr. Shah, do you think that this budget actually has given the consumer some extra power? Has there been an increase in the power, in the consumer power? And if there is an increase, what do you think? Where would this power come into action? Which sector or which area or which the geographically, if we see which part of the country, will you see the consumption increasing in certain amount of manner? Yeah, Mr. Shah.
Yeah. So I think we would largely be seeing, consumption increasing in the rural part, primarily because the kind of focus that has been put on rural incomes through initiatives that have been taken in, agriculture, livestock, fisheries, and they're measures which would have a significant impact on the income generation for rural India. However, while I would agree to most of the things that Mr. Malpani said earlier, that we won't see an immediate impact. I think two measures which were taken last year by government. One I discussed earlier was the increase in the threshold, tax-free income threshold to 12.75 lakhs. That's going to have a uniform impact largely into urban part as well. So I wouldn't say that rural will grow disproportionately higher to that of urban. Urban will also grow. Add to it the GST rationalization that we saw sometime back in September. We continue to see the impact of that, and I think we will see the full impact of that coming in the first quarter of the next fiscal, because the first 6 months after GST rationalization, I think are the ones where most companies were having a little bit of issue or teething trouble in terms of getting the prices reduced and printing of the revised prices on or MRPs on packs and stuff like that. So I think that full impact and full benefit to consumers we'll see happening from first quarter of the next fiscal, and that's where I think that measure will start really showing its impact on consumer demand. So while I personally feel that rural demand will see a higher growth compared to total market, but I don't think urban also would be a laggard. And as far as premiumization we are talking about it, I think GST rationalization is one measure that would also probably add, because you'll start seeing the MRP reduction happening, or lower prices for premium items, which will at least be a motivation for consumers to try out premium items at a cost or at a price which is lesser than what they used to pay earlier prior to GST rationalization. So my take on it is that while rural will benefit more, but I think urban also would not be far behind. I think you will see a good demand coming in from urban India as well.
Definitely. In fact, coming with the same question to you, Sanket. Sanket, since you are from the food F&B industry, in fact, do you think that this budget is actually giving a little more power to the consumer to actually enjoy going out, eating food, and in fact, ordering food for that matter?
So, Tarannum, I was just telling someone yesterday that the government has solved the problem of the kitchen, but not sure if they've solved the problem of the dining room. So, as a manufacturer, of course, they've solved some problems for us, but I'm not sure if they've put a lot of money in the hands of the consumer in the immediate way. I mean, while we keep talking about direct taxation in terms of 12 lakhs and 12.75 lakhs, but I think the indirect taxes are like a bigger hit on the consumer, anyways, in India. But yeah, I mean, but they've spoken a lot about upskilling. So I'm hoping that once this unskilled labor becomes semi-skilled, there will be more job creation from them for them. So they've spoken about that in the hospitality industry, in the hospital industry. So I'm hoping that there'll be some more semi-skilled laborers which might increase their salaries. And on a lighter note, because they've increased the STTA, I hope some of the money that was going into option trading might come into spending on buying food. So there we might see increasing consumerism.
Definitely. In fact, when we're talking about, more skilled workers, coming to you, Mr. Virmani, since you said that, and you have been, looking at the salon sector and the beauty sector in India, and of course, the sector also talks about more skilled workers, and of course, more skilled workers means more, people employed, and more employment means more spending power. Do you think that this spending power would also come towards your sector, the beauty and the salon sector?
Yes, I think definitely it should play out because people are getting more and more aware about their own looks, about their well-being, about their health. And what I have seen is that, people are earlier, which were going to the salons or home services for just basic stuff, are now trying out new things, getting more and more conscious. And also, this has a lot to do with the Western influence also that's coming in of the various new products and new innovations that's happening globally. So yes, the consumptions should remain steady at least and continue to grow at the same age. There's nothing major that's got a major push in this budget to drive all that. But yes, with the more and more skilled manpower and rural development, I think that's where the real growth would now be there. And that is, I think, where we would also be focusing a lot on the tier two, three cities where the development due to the logistical and road networks will happen. Another very interesting thing that I was just thinking to a previous question about where the consumer will spend, apart from coming from my trade, is also that the TCS has been reduced on foreign tours and packages. I think, which was close to about 12 to 20%, depending on the slab, has now been reduced to 2%. And also the personal custom duties have been cut from 20 to 10. So I think that is also a place where consumers will spend money traveling abroad. The immediate outflow from their pockets will be lesser. And while they are traveling, they'll also be happy to shop because the limit from 50,000 has now been increased to 75,000 of duty-free imports. And even if they were to import or get products beyond that, they just have to pay 10%. So a lot of international shopping is going to happen on e-commerce as well as personal this thing. And as a company, we're also very bullish on the EU trade agreement that's also been recently uh, signed and hopefully will get implemented by next year. So I think that is also a very interesting thing that we are looking forward to. It'll open the doors for the EU for us, and similarly, we import a lot of international products from EU. So by getting tax benefits and better prices, that's really gonna get us to get better penetrations in the market. The global uncertainties with regards to the forex exchange, etc., which the budget has not acknowledged or did something about. But in the long run, yes, with this variety of things, uh, the consumption will go up definitely.
Definitely. And in fact, with that, I'm coming to the same question and summing up the entire panel discussion with Mr. Malpani. So, Mr. Malpani, where do you think that the consumption power or the consumer power will actually lie now?
So I think the way my fellow panelists said, I think the focus will be on the tier two, tier three, and the rural Bharat. I would say there are a lot of incentives that are being taken out there, and if I look at it, there is an aspiration on in those part of the countries to copy something that's happening in the urban area. And if you look at the overall internet density of the country, we are at about 96 to 98% coverage from an internet density. So that actually helps a lot of people to buy products from D2C and e-commerce platforms as well. So I think that's where, uh, if you have a steady income, there are a lot of incentives that the government has taken to develop tier two, tier three, and tourism cities as well, and that's where the demand will start getting generated as well. On the urban side, though the demand has been a bit muted on an overall basis, but I think there is a premiumization that is happening in the country. And if I look at it, the UK FTA, the way Ankit also said, that is something that will also create more competition for the manufacturers within the country. So now the whole mindset has also to get changed, because with the consumer having more options, he will look at a premium quality product as well. So that's where how the Indian manufacturers can also scale up to face this competition, especially in beauty, biscuits, chocolates kind of a stuff. That's where the real competition will be coming in after some time, and that's where the Indian manufacturers will have to really look into. But from a consumption perspective, I think the tier two, tier three, and I would say the rural Bharat is the place to go from the volume perspective.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And I will take your leave as my fellow panelists, our fellow colleague, Tarannum will stay here as he will moderate another panel with experts. So, thank you, everyone, for taking the time out. And it was an insightful conversation. Thank you so much.